Hi everyone, Paul Woods from Adopt and Embrace. Thank you for joining us for our second Microsoft Education webinar today. We're looking at teams in universities, and the purpose of today's session, or this session we're just about to do, is around proctoring in Microsoft Teams. Now, when we think about proctoring, you might think back to classical exams where you obviously sitting at the front of a room and making sure that all the students are marking the papers accurately, not cheating, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to broaden the definition of this just a little bit for this workshop. What we're going to do is talk about all the different ways that you can gauge learning or understanding of content or topics through Microsoft Teams, from very informal ways of doing that through to much more structured formal ways like a formal examination that's proctored as well. There's about 5 different things we'll cover off in today's session. It should take us about 20 to 30 minutes to get through, hopefully. So let me just quickly switch my screen and go into the corner. So what we're going to look at first is how do we do some simple polls just to gauge understanding as we go through a particular topic or a particular content area. We'll look at more formally structured multiple choice questionnaires or quizzes that you might run, both as formative assessment but also summative assessment as well. One of the key ones for a lot of universities is being able to demonstrate evidence of teamwork, particularly for group-based assessment. So we'll look at how we can look at identifying and capturing evidence of teamwork in our teams. We'll look at more formal assignments themselves through the assessment tool, and then we'll finish with a little bit around formal exams if you still need to do that. One of the, I guess, overarching themes at the moment in terms of lots of educational institutions going to more, online or remote-based learning is maybe potentially having to rethink how we would formally do assessment in a physical world where everyone can come to campus and do that particular activity or that particular exam at the end of a semester. So as we go through this, maybe think about how you could potentially restructure or reframe how you manage your assessments throughout your course or throughout your unit, and hopefully you can take away something from this session that you might be able to apply quickly to still give you the ability to, or the capability that you need to gauge assessment and learning along the way as well. So let's get into it. I'm just going to get rid of this slide here. I'm going to go into Teams. And we have a team that we already created from earlier today. For those of you who haven't seen the first webinar we did today, where we went through some of the basics of setting up Microsoft Teams for educators, in particular in higher education. If you haven't had a look at that, the links will be available to that webinar later on. But what we did, just to give you a bit of a recap, we established a team for a unit which is quite timely at the moment, which is government, business, and society. And within that unit, we have a few different channels for the different topic areas that we're focusing on at the moment. So we have the executive channel for the executive branch, judicial for the judicial branch, and the legislative for the legislative branch of government. Now, this is just how we've structured our content for this particular course. Again, you could structure this by week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, so on, or you could have your different topics for your particular subject that you're teaching as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into one of these channels. Let's go to the legislative channel for now. And what we'd like to do is set up a simple way for us to capture some feedback in terms of, are students actually engaging in the learning content? Are they understanding some of the learning content? So an informal poll is what we're going to do. Now, if you don't see this little poll button here at the bottom, which is a little clipboard with a graph on it, if you don't see that, just click on these three little buttons here, the ellipsis, 3 little dots, and it should appear in this Find an App dialog box here. But in case of my screen, I can see it just here. So I'm going to click on poll. And what we're going to use this poll feature for is just do a really quick sanity check in terms of are the students actually understanding the content that we've delivered this week, or do they give them an opportunity to reflect on their learning as well? So I'm going to enter a poll question here. So where does the legislative branch of government sit? And first choice will be the High Court. Second choice will be Australian Got to get my spelling better. And Parliament House. We could add in more choices there if we wanted to. Now with these polls, you can kind of set some settings. So this one here is just going to be due in 1 week and make sure the results are visible to everyone. If we click on this, we can say only myself as or the teaching team can see the results of this poll. And we can change the due date as well. So say I wanted this to be done by tomorrow. I'll just go to the calendar. I want it done before our lecture at 1 p.m. So you have to do this poll by 12 o'clock. Go back and then hit next. And then we're going to see a little bit of preview of what we're going to post into the team. Responses only available to me, and then hit send. In a second, you'll see that we've put that poll into that channel around the legislative branch, and you can see here's a poll kind of to help us gauge the learning for the students. Now, hopefully everyone goes Parliament House, they submit their vote, and then as the member of the teaching team that created this poll, I can click on View Result, and I can see the results that came in on a graph, and I'll be able to download the results as well if I wanted to, as both an image and as a CSV file as well. So I can go into a bit more detail about how the responses came in for that poll. So we got a nice simple way to create something quick and easy to help us gauge understanding of learning concepts or content that we've delivered in the class. But that's something we can't necessarily pre-prepare straight away. So it's something you'd kind of do in real time as you wanted to build that content. The next thing we can have a bit more of a formal quiz. So we can kind of set a multiple choice questionnaire, which we could send maybe at the end of every week or every couple of weeks just to gauge how people are learning as well. And this could be used for assessment too. So we could use this to score and give some points for particular answers. And then that could roll up into like your mid-semester marks or other bits and pieces like that. So what we'll do here, I'm going to go into the assignments capability here in Microsoft Teams, clicking on the assignments button on the left-hand side. And once we go into this, we need to choose a class that we're going to do this assessment for. So in this case here, I've only got one class that I'm teaching this semester, which is Government, Business and Society. So I'm going to click on that one and then hit Next. Then from within here, you can see that we actually did one of these quizzes last week for week 3 for around the separation of powers. I can see that it's due tomorrow and none of our students have turned it in yet. So we've got to maybe remind them that they need to put that quiz in. What I'm going to do is create another more formal quiz now, which will be, say, our mid-semester exam. So I'm going to hit create. And what I'm going to do is create a quiz. Now, the quizzes use Microsoft Forms as a tool to help create the quiz itself. Now, if you've pre-prepared a quiz in Microsoft Forms, you can go and just pick it from the list here that you might have created. Otherwise, I'm just going to hit New Form now, and we're going to create that form for the mid-semester exam. Now, it's just taken me out into the Forms online server, so I just need to sign in because we don't have a single sign-on set up at the moment for this. So just bear with me a second. Just logging into our demo environment, work or school account. There we go. And we're in. Great. So what I'll do is change the zoom on this just a little bit so you can see a bit more. There we go. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to create a multiple choice exam for a mid-semester break. I'm just going to go to new quiz, new mid-semester exam, sorry. New quiz, I'm going to call this mid-semester exam. Gauging, I'll actually change that to description would be focused on the 3 branches of government and separation of powers. Now, a good thing is spell check's included in this, so we can just go government, separation. We have the ability here to add some richness to this before we add the question. So you can add a little icon or a logo beside that by clicking on the image button. There's the Bing image search here, so you can potentially look for the university's logo. I'll look for the Adopt and Embrace logo for now, just to add that in there. See if we can find it. Oh, that's not it, that's not it. Let's try that with a logo. Oh, it's not coming up in the search. That's all right. We could just upload one if we wanted to. If you had one already existing for your institution, you could add it in there as well. The other thing we can do is you can theme the quiz. So again, it doesn't have to look plain. You could pick your university's colors, purple or orange or maroon or blue, or use one of these backgrounds here. So I might just use this one here, which is a cityscape to remind us of what it was like when we used to go outside before we were kind of all locked into the context that we currently operate in. Okay, so what we're going to do now is add some questions to our mid-semester exam. So I'm going to hit Add New. And we've got a few different choices here in terms of the questions we can add. So obviously we can do multiple choice questions, which might be the easiest way for you to translate this into an online environment. We can also do free form text if you wanted some more longer form qualitative responses. Ratings if you wanted to kind of gauge in terms of how much people agree or disagree with things. But if you want to do ratings, there's actually a Likert scale we could potentially put in here as well. We can also rank things in certain orders too. We're going to put it into different sections if you wanted to kind of break up your exam into different sections around different topics as well. So you can just present like 3 or 4 questions on a page at once as opposed to the 20 that you might have in the assessment that you're wanting to put together. So we're going to do a really simple one now. I'm going to do a simple free-form text one to start with. So the question is, what does separation of powers mean? I'll right click on that, get the spelling right again. And there's a long answer here. It's required, and we're going to give this question 10 points. All right, so a very simple way to just put a question there and put some kind of scoring or mark against it as well. The next one we're going to do is a multiple choice question. So add multiple choice. The question is going to be, how many branches of government are there? And we might have 1, 2, add another option here, 3, I'll add a 4th option here as well, 4. Now, there's 3 branches of government in the Australian system, so we're going to have that as a correct answer. So I can mark that as the correct answer here. And then I can give a score to this one as well. So I'm going to make this one 5 points for the correct answer on that one. If we had a situation where there's multiple answers, you can kind of change the question to be multiple answers as well. But definitely we want this one to be required. For now, that's going to be the end of our multiple choice exam for the mid-semester exam. We can see it's out of a total of 15 points, but we could build this into something a lot more complex than this if we wanted to. But in the interest of time for this webinar, we'll just do it with a couple of questions to start with. Now, as a facilitator, as a teaching team, we can see the responses as they come in by clicking on the responses tab. We can see how many responses we've received, what the average score is. We can review specific answers and things like that, and we can open it up in Excel to see the particular answers that students are submitting as they submit the assessment. Obviously, we haven't published this yet, so no responses are coming in at all. I just want to give you a quick preview of what it would look like for the student. So I click on preview, we can see that. The immersive reader is built into it, so it's nice and easy for people to, if they struggle with English or they struggle with reading, we can still have these accessibility tools within the assessment as well, which may not actually happen in assessment that you do today, which is a bit of a bonus. You can see what it looks like on a computer, or also is accessible on a mobile phone as well. So depending on how your students are engaging in their learning content from home, knowing that not everyone may have a computing device, but they may have a phone, they can still engage in these assessment experiences as well. So you can see that is what it would look like from there. So if I hit back now, we've created that form, which is great. It's a mid-semester exam. So what I can do now is go back into Teams. So let's go to Teams, and I'm going to go create quiz. I'm going to select that mid-semester exam that we just set. So there we go, mid-semester exam. Hit next. Now I can put in some instructions here. So complete this within 30 minutes. Make sure this is open book. This is open book. You can kind of put your own instructions there in terms of how you wanted to set the exam. It's picked up the number of points that are possible based on what we said in that form when we created it. We can assign it to all students in the class, or maybe if you wanted to have this as additional or supplementary assessment for a particular group of students or one student, you could assign it just to one student or a few students as well. And we can say when it's due. So in this case, we want it done by today or tomorrow at midnight. So then it gives us the opportunity for students to do this in their time, as opposed to a specific time and date that we might have set in a physical classroom as well. That just gives people a little bit more flexibility, particularly at the moment when there's lots of stuff going on in our lives in terms of work and family responsibilities and things like that as well. Now we can edit those settings there just by clicking edit. And we're going to say, look, we could potentially schedule this to be posted in the future. So we can say it's scheduled for 3 weeks time. So if you wanted to pre-prepare some of this assessment, you can absolutely do that and have it scheduled to go and automatically post the assessment at a particular time and date. You can have a due date of when it is due, but you also have the option to have a closing date here, which means that yes, it's due on Tuesday, but we want to allow people to submit it as a late turn-in later in the week, maybe Friday. So we really want you to do it by the due date, but we'll give you a little bit of flexibility here as a late turn-in for Friday as well. Just gonna hit done. And then all we need to do, we can either hit save to save it as a draft, so we can kind of build this up over time. And then when you're ready to assign it, you can assign it, or we can just hit assign. So I'm gonna hit assign now. It'll take a little while. Apologies for the dog barking in the background. It's just one of the one of the experiences we're all going to have over the next little while as we start teaching and proctoring from home over the next little while. So you can see here that we've got that mid-semester exam. It's been assigned. It's due tomorrow at 11:59, so students can see that. But we also saw some notifications just come in. So you can see here on my activity feed, a little notification came in, and there's a little notification in the Teams as well. So if I go to Teams, you can see that in the general channel, there's been a new announcement or a new mention for me. Just come in and see why we see that number 1 just there. If I click on that, we'll see that the mid-semester exam has been assigned and everyone's been notified about it. Your students can react to it. If they're really excited about it, they can give a thumbs up. If they're worried about it, they can give you a bit of a worried emoji to that as well. Again, you can kind of get some real-time feedback from your students just based on how they react to some of these posts that go into the team as well. What I'm going to do is hit View Assignment, and you'll see it'll open up the Assignments tab. We say at the top there. Here's my view as a teaching team member. I can see how many I have to grade and how many I've graded. So when we go through the grading down the track, if I wanted to see the student view of what they can see, I'll just click on Student View there. And this is basically what they see in terms of the assessment. So click on that form, and then it opens up the form, and then they go and complete the quiz that we've set for them there. So pretty straightforward, nice, quick and easy way to set some exams. Obviously, something a bit more structured like a mid-semester exam, you might take a little bit longer than I did just then, but reasonably straightforward in terms of how you can create this kind of assessment experience or exam experience within Microsoft Teams as well. The next thing I want to talk about is getting evidence of teamwork. So a lot of universities, one of their graduate attributes is obviously students who can engage in teamwork. And a lot of units need to have teamwork or group work aspects included in their assessment throughout the semester. One of the challenges that we've had with assessing group work or seeing the evidence of teamwork in particular is when students are working on platforms that aren't within the university environment. So they might be using Google Docs or Facebook group or something else to bring their group work together. And as a teaching team, you can't actually go and log into those private or consumer platforms to see that evidence of teamwork. You're kind of basing it on a survey you might send to the students at the end of the course, or their word on how things have happened. And anyone who's facilitated a unit with teamwork knows there's always going to be some arguments of he said and she said and so on and so forth that you need to navigate with some of your groups. So how do we create a space where we can see the evidence of teamwork occurring, but also create a space where students can do their work within teams at the same time? So what we're going to do now is add a few different channels within our team for the different groups that we work with. Now, again, this could potentially be automated down the track if you wanted to integrate this with your learning management system and the groups that are created in there, or with other student management systems that you have. I'm just going to do a manual way for now. Luckily, this is a small unit, so we've only got a few groups, but this could become potentially overwhelming if you had a very, very large unit as well. So that's where the automation definitely comes in. In this case here, what we're going to do, I'm going to create a private channel for a couple of groups to do their group work in. So the idea of a private channel is just like these channels here, where we can have conversation and content and other bits and pieces in it, but we can restrict the membership of the channel. So in our unit, we want to have groups of 5 to do their group work. So I'm going to create a couple of groups for their group work. So I'm going to click on the 3 ellipses there, 3 buttons there, 3 dots, sorry, which is the ellipsis. I'm going to add a channel. This channel is I'm just going to put a little Z here, just because they're in alphabetical order. So I'm going to put Z there just to have it at the bottom of the list. And then I'm going to have group A. And then I want to make this a private channel. So this means that the other students who aren't a member of this group can't see it, which means that there's less chance of people, copying work or engaging in other teams when they shouldn't be. Now, you potentially could make this accessible to everyone in the team if you wanted to have it a bit more open and everyone working out loud and sharing their work with each other. But in this case here, because we want to do some formal assessment around it, we're going to make it private. Now we can have up to 20 private channels in a team at the moment. So you could potentially do this for 20 groups. Again, we can add in the different students we want to have as part of that team, that channel, private channel, and then any particular teaching assistants or sessional academics you might want to have involved in there that can actually see the evidence of that work as well. I'll skip that for now. Now you can see this is a private channel because it's got a little padlock beside it. You can see this is the Group A's workspace where they can do their work. Now what we would encourage the students to do is, once we've added the students in there, is go, right, come in here, all of your conversations around the assignment, all of the divvying up of tasks, all those other different bits and pieces that you need to do as a group, make sure you do it all in here. And then as a teaching assistant or as a lecturer or course coordinator or a sessional academic, we can come in here and actually see the evidence of that group work occurring, and we can potentially intervene if we need to as well. So say if things are going off the rails a little bit, we can come in here and have conversations with those students to make sure they stay on the right track. If we do add another one here, I go add channel, I'll just make it group B, and I'm going to make this a private channel as well. Go next. Again, we can just manage the membership manually on the next screen. Otherwise, if we do have some of that integration with our learning management systems down the track, we could potentially do a lot of it automatically as well. All right, so now I've got a few different groups here. Now, as again, I can switch between these different groups and see what's going on. The students in Group A can't see Group B. Sorry, the students in Group A can't see Group B, and the students in Group B can't see Group A. Which means we can have a nice, secure, private space for them to do their group work, where they can have their conversations, they can work on files and co-author their files. So a lot of the features that the students are familiar with other tools, we can have their file set up in this particular space where they can co-author the document at the same time, so they could work on the same assessment document. Someone's working on section A, someone's working on section B, all that kind of stuff. They can do that all here within the Teams environment. Assignment 1, go create. And then we can just crack open into Word and start working on our assignment for that particular assessment piece that we have there as well. But again, the actual assignment stuff is, reasonably straightforward. It's how we'd normally kind of talk about the structures of assignments that we'd send to our students. But the difference here is that we can actually see the evidence of teamwork occurring in the channel within the conversations that are occurring in the group. Students can do their video calls from here as well. So there's a Meet Now capability here to basically everyone get on a video call and discuss things as well. So if you wanted to have a small group conversation with a particular group of students around their assignment and what they've been working on, you can kick off one of these Meet Nows and you can have a video call with just that group of students in that particular channel as well, which is quite a handy capability to have. So that's great for group assignments or problem-based assessment or things like that. If we wanted to actually set an assignment itself, if we go into the assignments button here, and again, just like we did before, we have to select the class that we're working in, government, business, and society. You can see that mid-semester exam we just did is there still. I'm going to create an assignment now. I'll go create assignment. And the assignment is reflections on the Constitution. We can add our instructions for the assessment here, 3,000 word essay plus presentation to class. We're going to add a rubric for this one, so we can add in a rubric here, which you may already have this, which is great. If you haven't created one already, it's reasonably straightforward. Just go new rubric. So with the assignment 1 rubric, you can add a description there if you want to, and then you can basically say, we're going to have some points associated with this. So 4 is for an excellent, 3 is for good, 2 is for fair, and 1 is below average. And we can say, for example, clear and concise writing. You can align this to your graduate outcomes or assessment criteria that you already have. Excellent, very clear and concise writing. Next one would be just clear and concise writing. Ironically getting that wrong. There we go. Fair could be just average writing, poor spelling mistakes, grammatical issues. And so you can kind of create the rubrics that you already have in your existing world into the Microsoft Teams world as well. We can add additional columns if we want to as well, but also can add additional line items to the rubric too. So in this case here, we're going to have a presentation component of this assessment as well. So we're going to go, group presentation. Well delivered within timeframes. You kind of get the idea, right? So I won't fill this one out completely. So we can kind of build up this rubric here. We can have points associated with different things. Now we can weight the different criteria that we have here as well. So maybe writing, we want to put 70%. and we're going to put 30% on the group presentation. And then all we need to do, if I just move my head, is then hit attach that rubric to the assignment. That's attached. Any resources or anything you want to add to the assessment, you can put there. So maybe your existing assignment sheets that you want to have included. Again, we can assign it to all students or just a handful of students if we want to. And then we can manage whether they can have late turn-ins or not based on these settings that we have here. Then we hit assign. Now, we won't go into it in too much detail now, but you have the ability in Microsoft Teams to integrate other tools like plagiarism checkers and things like that, like Turnitin, for example. If you want to do that kind of stuff, talk to your IT teams about how you can potentially set those kinds of things up as well. And now that assignment has been set, so we should see, see that appear as a assigned assessment, reflections on the Constitution. You can see the notifications just went to the students when we assigned it. So we're going to Teams and the general channel again. You can see that everyone has been notified of that assignment being sent out and it's due tomorrow on the 31st of March. I should give people a little bit more time for their assessments, but it is what it is. So the last thing I want to talk about is how do we, if we actually had to do an exam, like a formally proctored exam, how would we engage with, how do we, I guess, supervise or monitor the students in that particular examination experience? Now, probably the thing to think about is in the current climate or times that we're in, rethinking how you do assessment to more quiz-based or multiple choice question-based ones like we've already assigned, or some group-based assessment where you can see that evidence of teamwork. I think trying to push a lot of our assessment towards those kinds of modes makes it a lot easier for us to gauge learning. But if we still need to do like a formal proctored exam, one of the things we can do, depending on the resources that you have, is actually set up a video call where we can watch students whilst they're participating in the exam or doing the exam itself. As an example, what we could do, if I say Group A is 5 students here, or 4 students, we could go into that particular group, and we could hit that Meet Now button just to start the conversation with them. Now I'm doing this in my garage. That's a nice view of my roof. So there's my, that's me. Hey everyone, coming in on the video. So assume there's some students there. If we hit Meet Now, what that allows us to do is basically start a video call with all the students in that particular team, and they could come in, depending on how their webcams are positioned, probably something similar to this with their, looking up their nose and things like that. But you could have everyone on a video call where you can see them and see the space that they're working in, whilst they facilitate, or once they do some of these quizzes that you assign to them or some of the assessment that you assign to them. So you have the ability to kind of visually see what's going on. Now, some of the limitations of this obviously is that if you want to be consistently looking at all the students and you've got a really large cohort of students, this might not work that effectively. But for smaller groups where you have some resources and you need to do that, we need to supervise the exam, it is possible to have the web feed coming in, video feed coming in, and you can watch students as they're doing that particular bit of assessment. It's challenging and it's a challenging time. So we kind of, a lot of the educational institutions that we're working with are kind of rethinking how they do assessment generally, and maybe moving away from a formally proctored exam like this and going into something that's a bit more, problem-based or assignment-based or quiz-based throughout the semester as well. So with that, what I might do, I might wrap up the conversation there. Let's give you a bit of a recap of what we've looked at. So really today was all about how do we, proctor assessment or, help gauge learning throughout the semester with our students within Microsoft Teams. We looked at a few different ways we can do that. So we've got a really simple, easy way to do that with polls in Microsoft Teams. We can quickly gauge that feedback from students straight away. We're going to have more formal quizzes where we can set some grading with that and have our students engage in multiple choice questions and reflective responses and ranking of different topics and all those different things that we can do within forms in particular, which is great for mid-semester examinations or other things like that. We looked at how we can do group-based work and how we can structure that group-based work to happen within teams so we can see that evidence of teamwork, which again, one of those key learning outcomes for a lot of universities at the moment, graduate outcomes that we're working towards. We looked at how we set up an assignment, actually send an assignment out to our students. And then finally, we looked at how we could potentially proctor a formal exam using video calling capability within Microsoft Teams to monitor students in their particular workspaces as they do that exam. I think the key thing at the moment is we're not striving for perfection. We're striving for trying to keep some continuity going with our students over time. So again, try your best with what you've got in front of you. Hopefully, a lot of the ideas that we talked about today, you could apply one or two of those in your particular practice, and make sure you share with other people, other educators in the community, how you're using Microsoft Teams to keep a really great student experience going on in your particular institution. Thanks for your time, and looking forward to seeing the results sometime online shortly. Cheers.